Got it all figured out, wanna do this right, there's no doubt.
If you haven't been shopping at Dollar Tree in a while, they have so many great new items. One of the items that I was so excited to find are these black arch framed mirrors. They look so cool. They definitely look fine on their own, but if you want to DIY them, let me give you an option. I'm gonna start by removing the contents of the mirror so I just have the frame separate. Then I'm gonna spray paint these mirrors to fit more with my home. So I wanted to do a charcoal brown. So I'm gonna spray paint the back side, let that dry, and then I'll spray paint the front. Now, one of the other things I want you to be on the lookout for at your Dollar Tree are these landscape canvas prints. Sometimes you have to dig through the canvases, but they have some great prints out right now. I found these two that I'm gonna be putting into my frames. I'll use my wire cutters to remove the staples on the back of the canvas. Next, I'll lay the canvas out flat, and then I'm gonna put down that inner mirror that came in those frames. This is going to be my template so I know how much of the canvas to cut out. So I'll put that mirror onto the canvas and I'll cut out about 1 inch around that. I'll wrap the canvas around the mirror with some hot glue. I'll place the mirror back into the frame, put the backing on, and then add the screws that were previously in the frame. And then I'll repeat this with my other canvas. Now, the second canvas I did was a little bit smaller. It still fit, but I had to use some of that side piece in my print. And here's how these frames turned out. There's so many wood pieces and wood boxes that they're selling right now at Dollar Tree. Let me show you a way you can create your own storage unit using those items. So for this project, you're going to need 6 of the Dollar Tree wood boxes. You're also going to need 2 of their long wood pieces. You're also going to need some wood glue. So I'm going to start by attaching 2 boxes together. So I'll add some wood glue to the side, place a box next to it, and then I'm going to use my clamps to hold them in place until they dry. Usually the wood glue will set up within an hour or 2. So I'll repeat those steps with all 3 of my box sets. Next, I want to attach these boxes to the 2 side panels. So to do this, I'm gonna add wood glue to the outside, and I'm gonna be placing those side wood panels, and I'll attach them the same way using wood clamps. I'll do this until I have all of the boxes attached. Now, if you're wondering where to put the center box, I just measured between that wood panel to find the center so that I placed it directly in the center. After you have your entire structure put together, you're gonna let this dry for a few hours. Now, you can keep it exactly as it is. You could paint it. I'm gonna be adding in a dark gel stain in the color coffee. Now, since it's already put together, I'm gonna be using a regular brush, and I will just paint on this stain, and using a paper towel, I'll remove any excess. So I'll do this on the entire structure. Once it's dry, you can use this to organize anywhere in your house. I'm gonna be using this in my bathroom to organize all of my products. I'm sure, like me, you've seen so many of these woven baskets that they have at Dollar Tree. They keep coming out with all these different colors. I've seen ones with white tops, black tops, the more natural ones. They have a couple of different shades of the natural woven ones. So I thought, let's do a DIY with these. I've maybe done one other DIY with these woven baskets. So today we're gonna be making some containers. So I needed to pick up 6 of the baskets. You'll also need a set of Dollar Tree shower rings. While I was in store, I took 2 of the baskets, put them on top of each other to make sure that they fit well on top of each other so I could use them in this next DIY because they are a little bit different. They're not all the same size. Now, once I had the 2 together that I was going to use, I used some twine and my largest needle and I thread it through to secure the 2 baskets together. I did this maybe 2 or 3 times. Now, you don't want to thread them super tight because you want your containers to open and shut. So kind of move them around as you're adding the thread so that they still open and shut really well. I'm going to repeat these steps with my other baskets. Once you have your baskets secured together by sewing the back side, then you can move on to the handles. So I took these shower rings and I just snapped them in half, and honestly, they all snapped in half equally, so I'm gonna be using half of my shower rings for the handles. I went in my craft room and pulled out some coordinating yarn to use for this project. I used hot glue to wrap the yarn around my shower rings. Then I used some more hot glue to place the shower rings on the top of the baskets. Let these dry completely. Now you could use these anywhere around your house, but I think they would be perfect in a bathroom. Did you know that you can put solar lights into a broom handle from Dollar Tree? Really easy to do. Take a Dollar Tree broom handle and pull off the end. Then with your favorite Dollar Tree solar light, you're just going to place it into one end. Now, if you want to glue it in, you could definitely do that, or you could just place it in and it'll stay in there. Then you can put it out by your patio or your front steps. Let me show you how to age any terracotta planter with paint. So you're going to need 2 colors, an ivory color and kind of a medium green color. And the best way to go about this is by using a natural sponge if you have one. So I put a little bit of ivory paint out on a tray and some water, and I'll dip my sponge into the paint as well as the water. Start with your ivory color and I'll dab off as much excess as I want. Then I'm gonna start dabbing it onto my planter. If you feel like you're adding too much paint, add a little bit more water to tone it down. You can also use a paper towel to wipe off any excess. Once you're happy with the amount of ivory, you can come in with that green color to make it look like it has moss on it. So I would concentrate that either on the top or the bottom of your planter. You also want to do this same technique if you're using a saucer, adding the ivory and green colors just so it matches well. Once you're happy with the amount of color on it, let it dry. The other thing I wanted to make for this planter was a trellis that my plant could vine on. So to do this, I picked up some shower rings at Dollar Tree and I laid them out on a board. I'm going to attach the shower rings with E6000. I also attached a small dowel to the bottom. That dowel is what's going to actually sit in my planter. Next, you can plant any vining plant in your terracotta planter. You're gonna place your shower ring trellis in the back after it's had time to dry overnight, and then your plant can vine up that trellis. The next time you go shopping at Dollar Tree, be on the lookout for this new set of viral plates. They're in this blue finish, so gorgeous. They have great plates, bowls. They also have these really pretty glass cups. I'm not gonna do a DIY with these, but I wanted to show you how you could hang plates on your wall. I feel like hanging plates on the wall has always been a popular thing, but it's starting to have a resurgence. I found a product on Amazon that I wanted to show you for how you could hang your plates plates on a wall. These are 4-inch adhesive disc plate hangers. With your finger, you're going to mix a little bit of water on the back of the plate hanger to activate the glue. You're going to leave this alone for a few minutes so that the glue can get sticky and activated. Next, you're going to put the disc on the back of your plate and let this dry completely overnight. The next day, you can come back in and add these plates to any nail on your wall. And here's how the Dollar Tree plates look hanging on my wall. So I had this idea where I really wanted to make a circle candle. So I was trying to figure out what the best way to do that was. Back around the holidays, I bought a silicone mold to make something out of Quikrete. So I thought, what if I found a circle silicone mold? So I found this one off of Amazon, picked it up. It came in a bunch of different sizes. I ended up using the largest 3 sizes to make this candle. I also have a candle melt that I buy off of Amazon, so I will link that for you as well if you're interested. So I started by making these candles like I would any other candle. I set up the silicone molds and then I placed my candle melt into a pot. This is a designated pot that I have just for making candles, and all you want to do is heat it up until all of your wax is melted. Next, I took the wax melt and I poured it into my silicone molds. Now with these, I felt like it was really important to try to fill them as close to the top as possible. And then you're going to need to make sure you put in a candle wick. I have this huge pack of them. I'll link for you these candle wicks down below as well. But you're going to place the candle wick into your container. And typically what I do is just use a little bit of painter's tape to hold it in place. I didn't do as great of a job. You guys are gonna see that in a minute on the larger one. Try to get your candle wick as much in the center as possible. Another technique I've used before is to just use some popsicle sticks and then tape it in place. Now, before you do anything else with these candles, you want to make sure that they are completely dry. So I usually let them sit a day so they can be completely cool. Then you're going to pop them out of the silicone molds. And I have to say, I was pretty impressed with them. I felt like they did a really good job. But I did make circle candles that are going to tip over whenever I light them. So I needed to place them in something. I wanted to see that gorgeous shape of the candles. I picked out 2 clear vases from Dollar Tree and I thought, let's add some Dollar Tree rocks to the bottom. So I started with the natural stones, putting those in. Then I put in some black rocks, and then on top of there, I placed my candles. Once I got the candles in there, I decided, you know what? I don't really like the way the black rocks look. So I pulled it all out. And then I decided, you know, I just want to go with the natural rocks. So I had to separate the natural rocks from the black rocks. But once I did that, I just put all the natural rocks back in. Put my candles on top, and I like it so much better. Here's how this circle candle DIY turned out. Next, I'm going to show you how to use this $1.25 wood piece to create this gorgeous riser. So pick up any wood piece from Dollar Tree. You're also going to need some additional boards. Now, these were scrap boards that I had in my house. They were about 1.5 inch in thickness, and I'm gonna cut 2 boards down with my miter saw to create legs. Next, I wanted these to look pretty rustic, so I got out my angle grinder and I had fun just creating notches into that top Dollar Tree wood board. I also created similar notches into the legs that I was going to be using. Next, you're going to sand down all your wood boards to prep them for staying. I wanted this to be a dark stain, so I came in with a dark colored stain, wiping it on with a paper towel and pulling off any excess. Now, once you do that, if you feel like you don't have enough stain, go in and add in a little bit more. I did that with my top wood board. Let your stain dry completely before you add on any glue. Then I'm gonna put E6000 onto the top portion of my legs and set the legs on the bottom side of this riser. Let it dry completely, and then you can use this anywhere in your house. I love using these in bathrooms with soap dishes. This is a great time of year for a wreath, and I have to tell you, the last time I was shopping at Dollar Tree, I came across so many natural looking florals that I had to pick up several of them to use in this project. And when you can find those more natural colors in your wreath, it's gonna make them look so much more high end. Several of those wreaths that I see on Pottery Barn's website use these natural color stems. So I'm gonna be using 3 different florals for this project, and I bought 7 of each of the florals. I'm also going to be using a wire frame base. I have found over the years that this is probably my favorite wreath base. I'm gonna start by using my 2 basic greenery pieces, and then I'm gonna come in later with my flowers. So I'm gonna place 3 florals down alternating. So I'll put 1, 2, and 3 down. And I'm just gonna stagger them a little bit. Once I have 3 down, I'm going to hold them together and put a zip tie on to secure them in place. I really like using zip ties on wreaths. I find for the base of your wreath, this does a great job of holding everything in place. So I'm gonna repeat that all the way around my wreath, adding in 3 florals and zip tying them together. Continue to do this around your entire wreath. Next, flip it over, add a little bit of hot glue to secure everything. Now it's time to add in my floral pieces. So my suggestion here would be to now hang your wreath up, because it's so much different putting together a wreath when it's hanging up versus when it's flat. I find that I'm able to really make adjustments so much better. So I'm gonna hang my wreath up, and then I'm going to add in these gorgeous white florals that I picked up at Dollar Tree. I'll cut off 3 of the leaves, and then I will secure it in place. Now these I'm just gonna secure in by placing them into the florals. I'll also add in a little bit of hot glue. From here, when it's hanging, you can really make adjustments, move leaves around. If you see a little bit of the wire, add a little bit of hot glue so you can cover that up with a leaf. And here's how this wreath turned out. Here's a hack to create an outdoor side table for your patio. You're going to need to pick up this Walmart planter. It comes in a bunch of colors. There's like a white, a black, and a blue. I was only able to find the blue one. You're also going to need to get from Walmart a pizza pan. Now, if you don't pick up the color you like, you can always spray paint these. So I spray painted my planter and my pizza pan with 2 coats of a matte black spray paint. You want to just cover each side completely. All you're going to do to create your side table is to place your pizza pan on top. So there's 2 options. You can either glue your pizza pan down and create a nice outside table, or don't glue it and you can create storage where you can throw your outdoor pillows inside. At Dollar Tree, they're now carrying these really cool tray boxes. They have 2 different styles. They have more of a traditional box and this scalloped one. For our first DIY, we're going to use the traditional one, and I'm going to start by staining it with the color Golden Oak. I'll apply the stain with a foam brush and wipe off the excess. A technique I like to do to make items look more vintage is to add on a stencil or vinyl. And if you don't have a cutting machine, let me show you a quick technique that you can use to create a transfer with just a regular printer. Now you can use any picture you have. I found a print that I liked on Etsy. I purchased it and downloaded it, and that's what I'm gonna be using. The picture I'm gonna be using is this lavender piece, and you can create multiples of these on your paper and just print it out. Next, what you're going to do is cut out your picture, whatever you're going to be transferring on. Next, determine where you're going to place it, and then add some Mod Podge to the outside of the box. Then you're going to place the paper face down, so wherever the print is, you're going to put that facing onto your box. Then you're gonna let it dry for several hours. Come back after a few hours and use a wet paper towel, and you're going to get the paper wet, and you can use a circular motion to remove the paper. The trick here is not removing too much so that your stencil gets removed. All you want to do is just remove all of that white paper. The other thing you have to keep in mind with this technique is you may remove some of your stencil. In my case, I didn't mind because I wanted it to have more of a worn look, but just keep that in mind that some of your stencil might get removed. This kind of box is perfect to set out in your home. You can style it with some of your favorite vintage books. All of mine are from the thrift store. I'm really excited to show you guys this next DIY. I'm gonna show you how to create a sconce. You're gonna need 2 items. The first thing you're going to need is a push light. Now this is a little bit larger than your average push light. I'm gonna put a link to it down in the description box. You're also going to need one of these mirrors that we've seen at Dollar Tree now for a couple of years, but the one I'm getting is the Starburst one. So with your light, you're gonna take it out of the package, and then we need to pop off the frame around our mirror. So mine has some screws on the back that I'm gonna have to unscrew to get that frame off. Next, I'm gonna take my mirror and my frame outside, and I'm gonna spray paint them the color copper. Now you're gonna need to do 2 coats on both of these, but you wanna completely cover both of these pieces. Now don't worry if you get spray paint on the mirror because that's gonna be covered later. Once everything is dry, you want to add the frame back to your push light and put the screws back in. You're also going to need to add batteries to your push light. Now you may be guessing what I'm doing here. I wanted to put this push light on top of this Starburst mirror. Now since it has batteries, I don't want to use glue or anything that's going to keep it on there permanently, so I decided to go with some command strips. That way if the batteries run out, I could always replace them. I'm gonna put 2 command strips on my mirror and place the push light on top. You can put this anywhere in a cabinet or a small wall, anywhere where you want a little bit of extra lighting, and then just push it to turn it on. The thing that caught my eye, I don't even know what you guys call this. Let me know in the comments what this is called. A plant mister. I should know that. This is $3. It comes in a clear one. There's also a black one, and these are great to sit next to your plants. I love the way these little watering cans look sitting out with your plants. With this one, all I did was add a little bit of rub and buff to the outside of the handle, and it just looks so pretty. If you've made it this far in the video, thank you so much for watching. Comment the word of the day, which is moose. Wondering what to do with all the Dollar Tree planters? Let me show you how you can make a hanging planter. You're gonna need your favorite Dollar Tree planter and a necklace from the thrift store or a necklace that you already have. Now, the longer the necklace, the better, and you're going to need 2 necklaces. I'll drill 4 holes in the bottom of the planter. I'm gonna place the 2 necklaces in the planter in an X pattern. To hold the necklaces in place, I'll use some fishing line and place it in the 2 holes opposite of each other. I'll tie the fishing line on the inside of the planter with a double knot. I'm gonna hot glue the necklace to the bottom edge of my planter, and then I'll pull it up on either side and put a tiny bit of hot glue along the edge of my planter. Next, you can fill this with your favorite plant and hang it up in your home. I picked up this lamp the last time I was thrifting, and I've been meaning to DIY it. Now the base I absolutely love, but the lampshade, every time you get a lampshade from the thrift store, oftentimes there's dings on it or there's black marks and you just need to paint it. So that's one of my favorite things to do. I used a beige sample paint color and just did a thick layer of paint, making sure I cover it completely. Now I only did 1 coat. If you need 2 coats, definitely go back in, but I try to do just 1 thick layer. Once this dries, you can put it back on your lamp base and style it in your home. Do you guys remember on my last Dollar Tree shopping trip when I found these gold candles? There was 3 different sizes and I felt like they looked very similar to an item I had seen on Anthropologie's website. So here is the screenshot of what I saw and I wanted to try to recreate this. The first thing I needed to do was address the color on these candles. These were more of a light gold and I wanted them to be a brass color. So I have 5 different gold rub and buff colors and I found the one that was closest to the brass color. I'm going to use a foam brush to add that brass color rub and buff to my candles. And I did this with all 3 of them, making sure they were completely covered. Next, I really wanted to recreate that top portion on these candles. And I went to the thrift store and I was kind of looking for something. I went to the dishes and I found these little saucers. They are in the shape of flower petals. And when I saw these, I was like, these are perfect. They were white. They were only $1 each. So I went ahead and picked up 3 of them. I feel like I really lucked out on this find, but I will tell you, my thrift store has so many different dishes. So I really think you could find something comparable at your thrift store. I'm going to attach these to the top of my candles with E6000. I let this dry overnight and here's how I styled them in my home. Let me show you how to make a sturdy outdoor side table for around $10. From Lowe's, you'll need to pick up 4 of these red concrete edging stones, and then you'll need 1 of the concrete paver stones. You're also going to need some liquid nail. So I'm going to start by placing 2 of the edging stones together. Now these are really flat and they will fit well together. And then I'm going to take a little bit of the liquid nail and put it on the edge of 1 of my edging stones. And then I'll place the 2 of them together. Now with my 3rd edging stone, I'll put some more liquid nails on the back of that, and I'm going to place this stone in the back. I want to create an X with my paver. So you want to make sure the bottom half of your paver is secure to the other concrete pavers. Then I'll add a little bit of liquid nail to my 4th paver and place it on the front side. Now you can let this sit and dry, or you can move on to your next step if you feel like everything is holding secure together. I'll add some liquid nail to the top, and then I'll place the square paver on top. Once the liquid nail is dry, you have a sturdy outdoor side table. Recently, I updated my office area, and when I did that renovation, I wanted to put a large wall art on that green wall, but couldn't really decide what I wanted to do. Well, I've come up with an idea, and that's what we're doing today. I knew that I wanted something that was really large, but to buy a large piece of wall art or a canvas can be really expensive. So my solution was to get a piece of insulation from Lowe's. I went with a 4-foot by 8-foot sheet. Why I love using this foam insulation is it's really lightweight and it's affordable. I also went online on Lowe's and looked through all of their peel and stick wallpaper. They had a ton to choose from, and I picked my favorite out for this room. Now this project may seem intimidating because it's such a large scale wall art, but I have to tell you, the foam is really lightweight and I know you could recreate this at home. So I first had to decide how big I wanted to make this wall art. So I carried that piece of foam, took it into the room, and then I just roughly marked where I wanted it to be on the wall. Next, I laid it on a flat surface and measured out where I wanted to cut and made straight lines with a Sharpie. Now to cut this, all you need is a box cutter because you're cutting through foam. So you're gonna take your box cutter and run it along your line, trying to make it as straight as possible. Once you make that first initial cut, you can bend the foam back, and then you'll probably have to run it through a second time just to completely cut the foam piece in half. You'll repeat this step on both sides. Now it's time to add on that peel and stick wallpaper. Now the wallpaper I chose had a pattern that connected in the middle. So I knew that I wanted to create 2 panels going down this board. So I thought I should figure out where the center point was on my foam board. And then I did that on both sides. And then I drew a Sharpie line down the middle. This is going to be so important because this is going to act as my guideline whenever I'm putting the paper down. Now, as I'm putting my paper, normally when you're adding paper to a wall, you want it to be nice and even with the top of your wall. I didn't want to do that because I actually wanted it to hang over a few inches because I knew I was going to take that wallpaper and wrap it around on all the sides. So I started where I had about 4 inches over the top of the paper, and then I pulled off one sheet and cut it off. Now it's time to attach it. The easiest way I think to do this is to roll it up, and then you're going to start to peel it off. Using that middle line as my guide, I started to place the paper down. Go slow and smooth it as you go. If for some reason it gets off track and it's not on your line, that's okay. Just pull it up and then push it back down. You're gonna do this until you completely have it smoothed down on one side of your board. Now the second piece is always going to be a little bit harder because with this piece you're going to have to line up your design, but don't be intimidated by it. You're going to start by just taking your piece and cutting it so it's at the right size. Then you'll peel back the paper and then line it up. Again, if it's not right, that's okay. You can adjust these as you're going. So you're going to lay it down and push it down. Now if you have any bumps or anything, pull it up. I ended up having a few bumps. That's okay. You can pull it up and readjust. Once you get it where you want it, concentrate on that center section, making it connect to the other piece, and you're gonna guide it all the way down. Now, once you have it on there, hopefully you've gotten both of your pieces on there connected. Now we need to wrap it around. So I did have some excess paper that I wanted to cut off. To wrap the wallpaper, I started at the bottom, wrapping the corners like you would a present, and then I pulled it up tightly on the bottom. I repeated that on the top side. Then I'm going to do the exact same thing on either side, wrapping the corners like a present and tucking it in. To hang this on your wall, you could use one nail or command strips. This would also be a great project to do if you're wanting the look of wallpaper, but you're a little afraid to commit to putting it on your walls. For this next DIY, you're gonna need a set of tea towels, some lemons, and your favorite paint to match your house color. Now we're gonna cut those lemons in half because we're going to be using them to stamp on our tea towels. Now to use these lemons as stamps, what you wanna do is place some of your paint out on a piece of paper or a plate. Then you're going to take half of the lemon, stamp it into the paint, and then before putting it on the tea towel, you want to dab off any excess. This is going to give you a better stamp. Then take your lemon and press it straight down on your tea towel and then pull it straight up. Now, if for some reason you don't get the correct shape that you want, you can always do another stamp on top. Just make sure you place it exactly where you put the last one. Usually when they have a little bit of variety, I think it just adds to the visual interest. You're gonna repeat those steps every time you put a new stamp on. Dip it in the paint, put it down on a paper towel to get off the excess, and then place it onto your tea towel. I'm gonna do a complete straight line. Now you could do as many lines as you want. This could be completely creative. You could also change colors if you want. Now I did 2 tea towels in the exact same colors. And here's how they look. I think they're super festive for the summer. Blue has been such a popular color this year. I wanted to recreate something that was a little bit more traditional in that blue color. So 2 of these items that Dollar Tree's had out a while, I picked up this blue and white bowl. I also picked up this clear bowl that they have. You guys have probably seen this at your Dollar Tree. So I wanted to create a pedestal bowl. So I'm going to flip over the blue and white bowl, add a little bit of E6000 to it, and then put my clear bowl on top. Now you could put real fruit in there. I found these faux pears at Dollar Tree and I love the way they look, and I just think this is so cute together. We're gonna make use of all those awesome prints they have out right now at Dollar Tree. If you go in the canvas section, there are several great landscape prints to choose from. I also picked up from Dollar Tree 2 of their 5x7 frames. From Amazon, I did pick up a larger bag of these half circle beads. I will link them for you down below, but a bag like this will last me for several projects. So I'm going to attach my beads to the exterior of my frame using E6000. So the way I do this is I just put a little bit of E6000 out on my table, and then I'll use something like a skewer to put a little bit on the back. Now you could use hot glue, but a lot of times when you use hot glue, there's extra strings or some of the hot glue will go to the edges. I just wanted it to be nice and clean and not have a bunch of glue. Now with E6000, you will have to let this dry overnight. Next, I'm going to spray paint both of the frames with a gold spray paint. So I'll start on the back side, let that dry, flip it over, and spray on the front. Once that is dry, we're going to add in those Dollar Tree canvas prints. So I took the inner portion of my frame and I put it on the canvas where I wanted to cut out. Then I marked around it with a Sharpie, and then I used my box cutter to cut it out. Then I'll place it into the frames, add on the backing, and I'll do the same to the other frame. And here's how they both turned out. There's no way you would guess these are Dollar Tree frames. Did you know that you can bleach thrift store baskets if you're not happy with the color and you want it to be a bit lighter? Just combine a little bit of warm water with some bleach, put your basket in there, and just turn it on each side so that you're covering all the sides and making sure that it gets completely submerged in the bleach water. After about an hour or so, you can take it out and you want to place it out in the sun so that it can dry and really remove that color. Once your basket is completely dry, you can add in some of your favorite florals. This is kind of my new favorite floral that I picked up off of Amazon. I originally got it in a pink color, then I found these pretty blue ones, but I absolutely love the way they look in my home. If you're interested in these florals, I will link them for you down below. So don't overlook the box lids that come with all these wood boxes at Dollar Tree. If you're using a wood box for a project, let me show you what you could do with one of the lids. So you're going to need a lid from a Dollar Tree box. You're also going to need any of their canvases. I'm using a very neutral one. So I started by pulling off the canvas with my wire cutters. And then I just cut off all of the excess around the edges where the staples were. Next, I wanted to wrap this box. So I cut it down to size and I'm going to hot glue it on one side. Then I'm going to pull it tight, cut off any excess, and hot glue on the other side. Now with the opposite edge pieces, you're going to want to tuck it in on both sides, pull the canvas up, and hot glue it in place. Repeat those steps on the other side. So what are we gonna do on the inside? We are gonna make a ring organizer. A project that I've done before is to add curlers to different frames and pieces in order to create organization. But we're gonna do this to create a ring box. Take your curlers, figure out how long they need to be, and cut them down to size. Repeat this until you have enough curlers to fill up your box. Next, you can wrap them with felt or any fabric you have. I found this really pretty fur from Dollar Tree, and that's what we're going to be using. Cut a piece, and then you're gonna hot glue one side, wrap it around, and hot glue the other side. Place these curlers into the lid until you have it completely full, and this is a perfect storage to store all your rings. One of the best finds I picked up at Dollar Tree in a really long time is this coffee mug. It comes in 4 different patterns, and I have to tell you, it looks exactly like a Pottery Barn style coffee mug, and it's just $1.25. One of the big trends I've been noticing on Pottery Barn's website is using larger bowls or planters and even mugs to create candles. So that's the trend I wanted to use with this mug. Now the wax melt that I'm going to be using is one that I've used several times off of Amazon. I will link it for you down in the description box. I also have a designated pot that is just an old pot that I use for melting candle wax. So I'll put the wax melt into the pot. I used to stir it, but honestly, I just turn it on kind of like a low medium setting and I will let it melt. Once it was melted, I transferred the wax melt into the mug and I needed a little bit more wax melt. So just do that same process again and fill your mug up till you're happy with it. I'm also going to be adding in my candle wick. Now to support my candle wick until it has time to dry, I'm going to put 4 popsicle sticks on the top of my mug and then I'll use painter's tape to hold them in place. Now from there, I don't touch this. I let it sit completely until it's cooled completely and the wax melt has hardened. From there, just remove the painter's tape, cut down your wick and style it in your home. Let me show you how to make the cutest picture wall hangings. So I bought some wood slices at Walmart and I'm going to stain them. I'll just brush the stain on and wipe off any excess. Now I did need a hanger, so I bought this pack of hangers at Dollar Tree, and I'm only gonna be using 2 for this project. Using my black rub and buff, I'm going to add the rub and buff to this hanger. Now, as I was adding the rub and buff should stick pretty well and cover up any color that's on your hanger. If it doesn't, you could always add some paint or you could spray paint these as well. Once everything's dry, I'm gonna hot glue the hangers to the top of my wood slices, and then you can attach these to your wall by using 2 command strips. And then just place on your favorite pictures, and I love how you can change this out. One of my favorite products on Amazon is this propagation station. It's so adorable. It's perfect for putting out in your kitchen, but I wanted to see if I could recreate it with Dollar Tree items for a little bit less. So when I was at Dollar Tree, I found this wood board that I picked up, and then I also found these gorgeous vases. They had them in several colors, but I picked up 3 of the blue. So the first thing I did was work on my board. I added some wood filler to where the holes are, where the string went through the wood piece. Once that dried, I sanded it down. And then I stained my board. To stain, I like to use a paper towel and I'll dip it into my stain, rub it on my board, and then just pull off any excess with the paper towel. Now, before you add any glue, you wanna make sure your stain dries completely. So wait a day or at least 12 hours. Next, I'm going to add on the vases. So I cut off the ribbons on the vases. Then I added a generous amount of E6000 to the back of my vases and then put them evenly spaced onto my board. Let this dry for another 24 hours, then you can fill it up with water and add in your stems that you're trying to grow. On our last Dollar Tree Shop With Me trip, I found this foam roller and I was so excited to use it in a DIY. Now I'm gonna be mixing up some of my Quikrete that I have. You can buy this at most big box stores, and I'll be mixing it with some water. You wanna mix your Quikrete with water until it's kind of a thick pudding consistency. To apply it to my foam roller, because there was all of those angles, I thought the best way to do it would be to just put on some gloves and put it on my hand and rub it onto the side of the container. This worked the best, so I just put it all the way around. You wanna make sure that your foam roller gets covered completely. So you may have to go back around a second time to make sure you don't see any blue, or you could let this dry and then go back and do a second coat. This should be dry by the next day, and then you can come back and add in any florals you like. I decided to go with some neutral eucalyptus stems that I had in my craft room, and here's how it turned out. Let me show you a hack for creating the cutest magnetic frames to put on your fridge. You're going to need to pick up this wood trim at Lowe's or just get your favorite wood trim. Using my oscillating saw, I'm going to cut down pieces based on the squares on the trim. So some of my trim pieces had 3 squares, some had 4, some had 5. I sanded down the trim pieces on the edges. Next, I formed them into rectangles that would create frames. I used E6000 and hot glue on the back to attach them together. These would be great to add some of your favorite pictures to, or you could just add in some of your favorite paper. That's what I did. I cut it down so it fit onto the back and hot glued it in place. To make these ready for your fridge, you're going to need to glue some magnets to the back. And here's how they turned out. If you happen to see my last Dollar Tree shop with me video, I showed you these boxes, and they remind me of those boxes that I usually set out in my living room to hide remotes. And that's what we're gonna be making for this next DIY. Now, another great thing that I found in that video was new peel and stick wallpaper. And my favorite one was this bird paper. It is so pretty, you guys. I hope you can find it at your Dollar Tree, but I'm gonna be wrapping this box with that paper. I picked a coordinating green color that I could use around the middle portion of this box. So I started by painting the middle section green. I let that dry completely. Then I wanted to add the paper on. So I started on one edge, placing it down so it was even with the edge of the paper, wrapped it around, and I did cut it as I was going so that the edges were nice and clean, but really this was pretty easy to do. I continued to wrap it and then cut off any excess of the paper. And here's how this box looks in my living room. I found this adorable bird container out at Dollar Tree. I just think it's so cute, but I wanted to change up the color. So I sprayed the entire thing with the color Sand Dollar. Then I just added on spackling to finish it off. And here's how the container looks in my home. I've been really into blue and white decor. When I saw this vase by Magnolia, I thought this is something I could recreate with Dollar Tree items. Over in the party section at Dollar Tree, they have these clear acrylic containers with a scalloped edge. So you're gonna need one of those to create this vase. Next, I'm going to spray it white because you need a base color for our next step. Once your vase is completely dry, I'm gonna add a tissue paper on top. Now this tissue paper I picked up online on Amazon, but you could use any tissue paper you have on hand. I'm gonna add some matte Mod Podge around my vase. And then I'll place the tissue paper onto my vase, making it as straight as possible. You wanna make sure you have a little bit hanging over the bottom and the top. I'll continue to add Mod Podge and wrap the tissue paper around until I have it completely covered. Now with the bottom edge, I'm going to put a little bit of Mod Podge on the tissue paper and I'll tuck it underneath. For the top, what I like to do with this area is just tear it off very gently so that you don't break the tissue paper on your vase. But this is a great way to finish off that top edge. Now, one of my tricks whenever you're adding Mod Podge to an item is you want to let it sit for at least 4 to maybe 6 hours before you put on your top layer. You want to make sure that bottom layer is completely dry. Then you're going to add on a top layer of Mod Podge. Once that dries, you can put it out in your home. Have you ever seen these recipe boxes at thrift stores and wondered what you could do with them? Well, I came across this one that was $1 and I thought it would be perfect to be a nightstand box. I love having a nightstand box where I can just put items in there that I need to get to quickly. So I wanted to DIY this first because it wasn't necessarily the style I was going for. So I started with my orbital sander, sanding down this entire box. I wanted to sand it completely so it was a blank slate. Next, I wanted to add some stain on there. I thought I was going to go with a natural stain. So that's what I added first. I put on the natural stain, pulled it off. After I looked at that natural stain, it was pulling really orange. So I knew that I needed to add some additional color. So I went with a medium tone stain and I actually put that stain on right after I put on that natural stain. That's one of the cool things about stain is you can combine them and mix and match them. If you want to sit and, give it time to dry, you can, but you can go in with a different stain. So once I put on that different stain, it really gave that look I was going for, more of a medium tone wood. So from here, let the stain dry completely. Next, I wanted to put a stencil on top because I felt like it needed something. So I have this set of stencils off of Amazon. I will link them for you down below, but I went with the checkered stencil and using painter's tape, I placed the checkered stencil down and then I'm gonna be using a light green sample paint that I picked up at Lowe's. You can get any sample paints created that you want. So I'm gonna be using that sample paint. I find with stenciling like this, using a stipple brush tends to work better. So I'm gonna get some of my paint and put it out on my craft table because you really don't want to add a lot of paint when you're stenciling. So I stuck my stippling brush into my paint and wiped off any excess, and then I filled in my stencil with paint. Now, after I removed it, you can see I only did half the box. I'm gonna let this side dry completely before I do the rest of the box. Then I'll place my stencil back down and stipple around the other side. You may need to go in with a detail brush if you've had any areas that have kind of run underneath where you've put the paint, just to kind of clean up those lines. But after this dries, you can fill this with your essentials that you need by your bedside, and it just looks so great sitting out. I really wanted to dupe this next painting and I felt like it was easy enough that I could do it. I'm gonna break down all the steps for you and you could recreate this painting at home. You're gonna start with 2 canvases. I decided to go with 16 by 20 canvas, but if you want them larger or smaller, you could make that adjustment. I'm going to spray paint the canvases with an ivory color. My favorite spray paint lately has been Sand Dollar. I'll do 2 coats of Sand Dollar on both of my canvases. Now that my canvases are dry, I wanted to recreate those circles. Now I could paint them on, but I was afraid that I wasn't going to get them exactly right. The other thing is I really wanted them to have a raised texture. So the idea I came up with was to get a piece of cardstock and then I took some spackling that you would use on your walls and I spread it all over my piece of cardstock. And I wanted it to kind of have a lot of character to it. So I didn't want it to be perfect. I didn't want it to be smooth. So I put a layer on and then I let that dry completely. I did this with 4 different pieces of cardstock because in that original piece, piece, if you look at it, there are 12 circles. So I knew to create 2 of these, I was going to have to create 24 circles. So the next thing I did was I went into my sample paints and I pulled out 12 colors that were kind of that color scheme that I wanted. And this was pretty easy to do because this is my color scheme. I love neutrals, I love blues, I love greens. So I pulled out all of those colors, and on my cardstock, I did 3 strips. So I just picked a color, painted it on, and did 3 strips because 1 strip is going to give me 2 circles. So I did this on all 4 pieces of my cardstock. Let that dry. The next step is I needed to draw my circles. So I found a flower pot as my template, and I flipped it over to the back side and created circles on either edge, and then I created circles on the middle, making sure that I put them where I wouldn't get any of the colors mixed together. Then the next step is to just cut out your circles. You do want to flip it over on the front side and make sure you don't have any rough edges. After you get all your circles cut out, I do think it's worth it to make these circles because I love the texture they provided. I'm gonna place 12 circles on the canvas, and I measured all the sides to make sure they were the exact same. I really didn't care what they were. I honestly kind of put it where I liked the way it looked, but if I had 3 inches on one side, I wanted to make sure I had 3 inches on the other side. And I really concentrated on those outside pieces, and I knew the inside ones, I could kind of change those a little bit. So I started by hot gluing everything down. I started on the outside pieces, and then I went to the interior ones. Now you do want to make sure that you get enough hot glue that all of your edges are going to be securely down. Now I needed to replicate that on my other canvas. Now I didn't want the circles to be in the same spot, so really I tried to put them on there very randomly, but I did want my measurements to be the same. So I put everything on there and made sure I had the exact same measurements and it looked the same, and then I hot glued those in place. I did also want to add a wood frame, so I cut pieces so that they fit around the outside of my canvases, and then to attach them I used E6000 and hot glue to secure them to the sides. And here's how these Anthropologie dupe canvases turned out. Do you remember when I was shopping at Dollar Tree and I came across these handles? I was so excited to find them. This is an item we've been wanting Dollar Tree to carry now for years, and it's gonna be perfect in our DIY. So I had to do a DIY with it. I got a board from Lowe's that I'm gonna be using, and the board was actually the perfect size. You could cut your board to be any size that you want it to be. And I wanted to do a fun stain technique. Now, if you wanna use regular stain, go ahead and do that. That's awesome as well. But this is a more natural stain you could use. I'm gonna be using coffee grounds as well as vinegar. Now I didn't have regular vinegar. I had a cleaning vinegar that I got at Dollar Tree that I used, and it seemed to work okay. So you may wanna use regular vinegar, but this is the one I used for this project. So I'm gonna mix the vinegar with the coffee grounds, and you just want that to set for a few minutes. Next, I'm going to use a foam brush to paint this mixture onto my wood board. When you're doing this, you're gonna get coffee grounds onto your board. That's okay, they can wipe away. After I did one coat, I did wipe it away with a paper towel, and I wanted it to be a little bit more concentrated, so I added on an additional layer of the stain and then wiped it off. At that point, I thought I was happy with the color, so I let that dry, and then I added the handles to the edge. To do that, I just placed the handles on either side. I marked with a pin where the holes were, and then I drilled holes straight down, and then I attached the handles to either side with a screwdriver. Now, as this dried for a couple of days, I felt like the stain got a little bit lighter. So if I was to do this project again, I would probably put that coffee vinegar mixture on there a little bit more concentrated to get a deeper color, but it still looks great and is such a cute tray. Why I wanted to try to recreate something that I found on Anthropologie's website. Now for this DIY, you're going to need 2 different sizes of planters from Dollar Tree. I used one of their $1.25 ones and a $5 planter. You're also going to need 2 dinner plates. Get a dinner plate and a smaller salad plate. Now I wanted these to be a terracotta color, so I have a sample paint in a terracotta color. I'll mix the terracotta with some baking soda. I like to do this because it makes the paint a bit grittier, and so it cuts down on the amount of coats you'll have to do. So I'm gonna put a coat on every piece I have on the planters. I will also do it on the plates, front and back. I let this dry completely and then I came back in and did a second coat. Once your planter and your plate is dry, you can attach these. The best way to do it is to add some E6000 to the bottom of your planters and place your plate on top. Let it dry overnight. They have a big variety of rugs over here. Now you kind of have to pick through to find the good ones. Now the one we spotted is this chenille rug right here. I have a similar rug to this one. It's a bigger rug, but I bought it off of Amazon. This one's $15 and I definitely think it's worth getting. Dollar General sells these wood stakes for just $1. We're gonna need these to help us DIY. I have this blank wall in my living room and I thought this long rug would look perfect. Now this rug was a little too bright for me. I wanted it to look muted. I wanted it to look aged and worn. So the technique I'm gonna be using to make that happen is to get some ivory sample paint, and you can mix the paint with water. Honestly, I started mixing it with water and I found that I could just use the paint because it wasn't going on super concentrated. But you just wanna put a little bit of paint onto your brush and then you're just gonna start brushing it all across your rug. This is going to mute down the colors on your rug. And you can do this as little or as much as you like. Once your rug is dry, I'm gonna be using those stakes that we picked up at Dollar Tree. I'm gonna measure the ends of my rugs and mark it. Then I'll use my miter saw to cut the stakes so they're all the same size. I'm gonna be using a combination of E6000 and hot glue to attach the stakes to the top of my rug. And I'm also going to put one at the bottom. This is gonna help to stretch my rug out, and it's also going to help me with hanging. Now with the third stake, I'm going to put some command hooks on the back and add that to my wall. And I can just set the stake on top of my first stake to hold it up on the wall. And then the stake at the bottom is just going to help to really stretch it out on the wall so it looks nice and flat. These jars are some of my favorite to use from Dollar Tree in bathroom DIYs. You can really customize them to your bathroom. So I'm going to spray the lids a gold color. I sprayed the underside as well as the top. The last time I was shopping at Dollar Tree, I came across these really pretty blue knobs, but they did have silver hardware. So I wanted to make them fit more with my gold theme. So using some gold rub and buff, I'm going to brush that onto the top area where there's a little silver piece. And then I'm also going to put it on the bottom area where there's like a big silver piece. Now to add the knobs to my gold lids, I drilled a hole directly in the center of the lids. Next, I will place the knob in the middle of the lid, and then using the washers that came with it, I'll just add those to the back. You can fill these jars up with bath salts or any items you'd like to store in your bathroom. For this next DIY, you're going to need 3 of the Dollar Tree boxes. I wanted to turn these boxes into wall hangings, so I'm going to be using some of the Dollar Tree peel and stick wallpaper. There's several varieties right now. I'm going to be getting the one in a herringbone wood finish. So I'm gonna first figure out where the center point is on each of these wood boxes, and I'll mark it. Next, using my paper, I'm gonna place it so that the center point is at the center point of my box, and I will press that down. Now, I did cut my paper down a little bit so that I could use a little bit on each one. Now, to cut it off, I wanted it to be flat on the back side, so I'm gonna be using an X-Acto knife all around the edges. Now, if you don't get it cut perfectly, you can always go back in with your X-Acto knife. And I'll do that for all 3 of the boxes. Now, if you notice on mine, some of the edges, I kind of tore the paper a little bit. So to disguise that, I'm gonna be using a Sharpie around the edges. This honestly just gives a little bit of dimension to it, and it covers up all of those flaws. Next, I'm gonna be using some greenery to put at the top. This is a greenery pick that I've had from Hobby Lobby. I'm gonna cut the pieces off and use about 3 in each of my boxes. And you already have those edging pieces, so I'll just place them into the top and hot glue them to the middle of my box. And then I'll repeat these steps for all 3. These look so cute sitting out on my shelf, or you could attach them to your wall. The last time I was shopping at Dollar Tree, I found these really cool gift boxes. They had a bunch of different patterns, and it reminded me of the structure of a tray that I saw on Anthropologie's website. So I picked it up to create a tray. On the edge of the Anthropologie tray, it has a scalloped edge. To achieve that, I'm gonna be using some popsicle sticks. So I figured out how high I wanted my popsicle sticks to sit. It was about halfway through my popsicles. So I measured the halfway point and made a mark with my Sharpie, and then I'm just going to cut all of the popsicle sticks down so that they are the exact same size. Next, I'm going to use hot glue to start attaching the popsicle sticks to the edge of the box. And I'll just add a little bit of hot glue to the box and then place down the popsicle sticks. You want to make sure that your top edge is nice and level. I think the top edge is a little bit more important than the bottom, but if they can all be level, that's even better. So I'm going to do this all the way around this box. Now, it was raining whenever I started this DIY, so I decided to paint it inside, and I mixed some of my acrylic paints with baking soda, and I started painting it. It was kind of this cream color, but if you guys know anything about spray painting, it's just a little bit easier and it goes faster and you could do less coats. So it stopped raining, so I decided I was just going to take it outside and spray paint it with a white color because I wasn't really liking the cream. I think the white ended up looking a lot better. Now, one of the coolest things I did on this piece was use a new spray paint. I've never used this before. It's called a marble spray paint, and it's in this gold color. And it was so neat. When I sprayed this out, it really created a cool marble finish. I'm gonna be using this more in upcoming projects because I just really liked it. But you want to spray this ever so lightly on your project. I did it on the outside edges as well as the middle. Let this dry and you have a tray to style in your home. I have another solar light idea for you. So from Dollar Tree, you're going to need to pick up these clear bowls, 2 for each. You're also going to need some deck solar lights. So you're going to start with one of your clear bowls. Then you're going to make sure that you have the deck solar light turned on, place it into your bowl. Then you're going to put some E6000 around the top edge of your bowl, put one of the other bowls on top, and then repeat these steps with however many solar lights you'd like. Then you can put this out in your landscaping to create this really pretty glowing dome at night. I found this floral tote at Dollar Tree and thought it was absolutely adorable. I wanted to try to use it in a project. I thought, what if we turned it into wall art? I also found some canvas prints that were in a very similar style, so I picked those up. And then I went to the frame section and got frames that were 8x10, 5x7, and 4x6. There's so many frames to choose at Dollar Tree, and I was really drawn to this woven one. I'm gonna remove the contents of my frame. And then on the frames themselves, I'm going to use Rub and Buff to adjust the color to a color that fits a little bit better in my home. Next, I'm going to cut down the tote so that it's the largest one that I have. I'm going to use that piece of paper that comes in the 8x10 frame and put it on top of my tote. I'll draw around it and then cut it out. I'll do the same thing with the smaller prints. I'll put the 5x7 paper on one of my floral prints, trace around it and cut it out, and I'll repeat those steps with the 4x6. I'll place all of the prints into the frame. And here's how they look all together. For this next DIY, pick up a $1.25 planter. You're also going to need some large wooden beads. Mine are from Amazon, and I used a combination of E6000 and hot glue to attach 3 of these large beads to the bottom of my planter. Electric blue is very popular. We're seeing it on all the high-end sites. So I went to Lowe's and I found an electric blue paint sample, and I just had a sample made of that electric blue paint. I'm gonna paint 1 coat on the entire planter, including my legs. Now I wanted to add a little bit of texture to this piece. One of the items I picked up was this scrub brush from Dollar Tree, and that's what's going to give me texture on this planter. So I mixed the electric blue paint. I also added in some spackling and this kind of dark gray color. I mix those all together, and then using that sponge, I'm going to sponge it onto the entire planter, including those legs at the bottom. Let this dry, and then you can add in your favorite plant. For this next DIY, I'm going to make a clay tray. Now, if you've watched any of my DIY videos, you know that this is not one of my strong suits. Oftentimes, these don't work out for me, but I feel like this one turned out pretty good. I'm gonna start with the Crayola clay. I like that these come in bags, so they're airtight, and whenever I need to use them, I can get out the amount that I need. I'm using about half a bag for this project, and I'm gonna start by just rolling it out. Now, my idea for this project was I wanted to add in some of the dried florals that I had picked up off of Amazon. I wanted it to be in a circular shape, so I'm going to cut it down so that it is in a circle. It doesn't have to be perfect, but I was wanting that circular shape, so I'm going to continue to roll it out. When I was adding in the florals, it wasn't sticking in really well. I felt like I was having to really press it down into the clay. It did help to roll it out a little bit more, but it wasn't holding in as well as I wanted it to. So from there, I decided, okay, I'm gonna form the shape and then I'll worry about adding in additional florals. So I took my entire piece and I put it over a bowl so that it could dry and have that curved up shape. I let it dry overnight, and then the next day I decided to add some Mod Podge to the top. And I did add in some additional floral pieces where I felt like it was bare. Okay, so then after the Mod Podge dried, I was like, you know, I don't really like the look of this. So I was trying to figure out what I was gonna do. I did add a gold border around the edge with Rub and Buff, but I felt like there wasn't enough florals. So I added some additional florals to the top and then added a completely new layer of Mod Podge. After I did that, I was pretty happy with it. So that's always my tip. If you're not happy with the way something looks, maybe add additional elements to see if it'll work. This little dish is perfect to style in your home or your bedroom. Have you spotted these mirrors yet at Dollar Tree? I was so excited to find it, I had to pick it up for a DIY. I'm gonna stain the wood piece at the bottom with the color Early American. Next, I'll remove the film from my mirror. Now I wanted to give this mirror a little bit of a border, so I had this green macrame cord that I'm gonna be using, and I started by hot gluing it around the edge. Now, as I was doing this, I realized hot glue was probably not the best option because it was coming out thicker than I wanted, so I switched to E6000. So I put a thin layer of E6000 along the edge, and I placed my cord down. Then I looped the cord back up, adding a tiny bit more E6000. You don't want a lot because you don't want it showing through on your cord. I kept adding my cord until I had about 4 pieces around the outside edge. I cut off the excess and let this dry completely. Then if you have any glue left on your mirror, just use a little bit of Dawn dish soap to take that off. I wanted to take these terracotta plant saucers and turn them into trays. To do this, I wanted to put like a half bead on the outside of my trays. So I went through my craft room to see what I had. I had a couple of options. I had some wood beads, and then I also had these like pearl beads, and I felt like they both would work because I was going to be painting it. So on the larger one, I added these wood beads. I'll link them for you down below if you're interested in these, but I just put a little bit of hot glue on the back and then placed them around the exterior of my tray. I didn't measure it. Honestly, I just tried to space them as evenly as possible. On the smaller one, I used the pearl beads to place them on. Once they were dry, I wanted to paint this, and I came in with kind of like a rich brown taupey color. I also mixed it with some baking soda. This is kind of my trick when I only want to do 1 coat of paint. Sometimes I have to do 2, but it just creates a really gritty texture, which I like the appearance of that, and it also cuts down on the amount of paint coats you have to do. So with this, I only had to do 1 paint coat. So I put the paint on both of the trays and let that dry. Let me show you a really cool organizing hack. Pick up a few of these clear acrylic organizers the next time you're at Dollar Tree. For this hack, we're just going to use the outer portion of this clear container. So remove all of the labels and take out the drawers. Next, I'm going to line the inside with some paper that I bought off of Amazon. I measured how wide I wanted the paper to be with a pencil and then cut it out and placed it into my drawer. I used the same paper as a template to do the other 2 containers. I'll cut those out and place them into the drawer. To hold them in place, I'll add E6000 to the 4 corners of all the paper. Add command strips to the back, and you can hang these onto your wall or your shelf for additional storage in your bathroom. This next DIY came about from a shopping trip where I recently was at Dollar Tree showing you guys all the latest items they have, and I found this set over in like the party supply section, and I thought, you know, this would be so cool to use to create like a fluted texture on a vase. So I got a 2-pack of these disposable containers from Dollar Tree. I'm just gonna be using one of them, and I started by placing spackling all around the edge of this container. My goal here was just to get as much spackling on as possible and create like an even look around the edge. Once it was covered with spackling, then I started to use that tool that I picked up to create a fluted edge. So I started at the top and just ran it down to create a cool fluted edge. Now, trust me, this is not going to be perfect, but it's going to give a really cool texture. Now, maybe you might pull off too much of your spackling. That's okay, just put some back on and then run your tool back down. Once you're happy with the way this looks, set it aside and let it dry completely. Once it dries, you need a container to put on top. This is a glass container I picked up at the thrift store. I'm going to add E6000 to the bottom of the glass container and place it on top of my vase. Now, to go a little bit farther with the texture on this, I do want to spray paint. I sprayed the entire vase with the color Sand Dollar by Rust-Oleum. I started by spraying the bottom half, flipping it over, and spraying the top half. Now I wanted to add a little bit of texture, so I had 2 of those stone finish spray paints. One was kind of like a brown color, and then I had another one that was a white color. So I sprayed that over my vase using that really cool paint turntable that I have. I will link it for you down below because it works so well to really just spin your project around and spray paint it. Now, I did think I maybe added a little bit too much brown, so then I came back in with a little bit more Sand Dollar to tone it down. That's what I love about spray paint is you can keep adding until you're happy with the way it looks. Once you're satisfied, just let it sit and dry. Now, I will tell you, you can go ahead and add some of those multi-layers of spray paint before they dry. So if you want to add the textures at the same time, if you want to add additional Sand Dollar, you can do that. And here's how the vase turned out. Planters can also be used as organization. So you're going to need one of the large 3-planter caddies. You're gonna need one of the large ones and also one of the small ones. You're also going to need a dowel rod for this DIY. So I wanted to stack the smaller one on top of the larger one. So I decided how long I wanted my dowel rod to be based on the fact that I wanted to be able to put items on the bottom in my bathroom. So once I determined that, I cut my dowel rod down to size. I drilled holes in the very center of both of my planters as well as my dowel rod. Now, I did cut some shim pieces that I could put in with my dowel rod to help me really hold those screws in place. And I was also worried about the plastic breaking, so that's another reason to add in those shims. So using a shim and my planter and a screw, I'm gonna screw in my dowel rod to the bottom planter. And then I'll attach the top planter the same way. Next, I sprayed the entire piece with the color Sand Dollar. You're gonna wanna do 2 coats to make sure you completely cover it. Then you can fill it with some of your favorite bathroom essentials. Now, you don't have to use this in your bathroom. It would work great in other areas of your house as well. Let's put together a wreath. So for this project, you're going to need a wire wreath form. I have to tell you, this is the one that I have been using for most of my wreaths lately. I love the size of it, and I love that you can get it for $1.25. I also picked up these gorgeous Dollar Tree lamb's ear. Aren't you so excited that Dollar Tree sells these stems right now? I think they're gorgeous and perfect for wreaths. So I'm gonna start with those, and then we'll add in some florals a little bit later. So what I did was I took all of my stems and I put them into bundles of 3. That's how I usually like to attach my base floral to my wreath. So I'm gonna take the 3 lamb's ear and I'm gonna stagger them, and then I'll start wrapping them around my wreath. And to secure them in place, my favorite thing to use is zip ties. So I'll put a zip tie in place, and then I'll wrap around the stems, and I may add an additional zip tie, just kind of depending on the stems and if they're sticking out. I had 5 different bundles that I placed around my wreath. Now, as you can see, it didn't completely cover this wreath, and I feel like whenever you're putting a wreath together, you kind of have to go in with different textures and layers. But with this wreath, I really wanted to stick with that same green color. So I went into my florals. I found this one stem that I had from Hobby Lobby. I started cutting pieces off of that and then just placing that in. To attach these pieces, I used hot glue, but it wasn't really giving me that bulk that I needed. I picked up a boxwood stem from Dollar Tree that was a similar color to the lamb's ear, and I'm gonna put 5 of those into my bundle, and I'll add those in with hot glue. Another trick I like to do is take my wreath, flip it over to the back, and then I can use additional zip ties to attach everything together. I can also put additional hot glue on just to really hold everything in place. Once I had all my florals in place, I wanted to add in some lemons. So I placed those strategically around my wreath, and then I added hot glue to hold them in place. And here's how the wreath turned out. So the other wood items I like from Dollar Tree are these wood kind of trinket or jewelry boxes. I bought 3 for this next project, and this project I was kind of experimenting with. So in past DIYs, I've used tea stain. So that's what I wanted to do for this project. I added a little bit of water to a bowl, and then I placed in the tea bag. And then from there, I'm going to take it and kind of just run it along the exterior of these wood boxes. It really wasn't giving me that desired look that I was going for. So my second technique that I tried was adding in coffee. So I put a little bit of coffee, mixed it with water in a wood bowl. This is another technique that I've done before to stain with coffee. And I started to brush all of this coffee onto my wood box. I kind of got too many coffee grounds on this, so I ended up having to wipe all of those off. I feel like the coffee did stain it a little bit better than the tea. I probably could have come in and used a regular stain, but I was trying to try something new. So I let that dry completely. On the inside of the boxes, I wanted to add in the Dollar Tree peel and stick wallpaper. They have a lot of really fun patterns, so I picked some of my favorite ones that all went together. And then I cut out a piece and kind of measured it to make sure that it would fit on the inside of the box, on the bottom and the top. Once I had a template, I just repeated that with the smaller one. So I created a smaller one to go on the inside. I removed the backing and placed the wallpaper on the inside of the boxes. Now for the legs, I wanted to use these wood beads that I had in my craft room. So I'm gonna place beads onto a dowel rod. I find that doing this makes it a little bit easier to paint them. Then I'm gonna be using a light blue color and just paint all of the wood beads. I'll let them sit and dry, then I'll remove them from the wood dowels, and then using hot glue, I'll place them into all 4 corners. And I'll repeat this for the other 2 boxes. And when I was searching on Anthropologie's website, I came across this soap container. It had a gold top and a speckled finish. I absolutely loved it, and this is going to be my inspiration. I want to start by creating a set of bathroom items that are going to set out on my vanity. So I picked up a soap container, a soap dish, and a toothbrush holder. I started by removing the tags to the soap containers. Next, I'm going to spray paint all of these pieces with the color Sand Dollar. I'm gonna do one coat on the back and then do another coat on the other side. Now you wanna make sure that it's completely covered with your Sand Dollar color. After that, I wanted to add in a speckled finish. So to do that, I'm going to use 2 stone spray paints. One is a white and the other one is more of like those brown and tan colors. What I love about these speckled finishes is that you can add as little or as much as you want. I decided to add quite a bit, so I went in pretty heavy with the brown color, but if you ever feel like it's too much, you can always tone it down by adding a little bit more of the white. Now to finish off the soap container, I wanted to add some gold rub and buff. So just to the top of my soap container, I'm going to add gold rub and buff. Now for my soap dish, I wanted that to be elevated. So I found this wood riser at the thrift store. It was only 50 cents, and I'm going to attach my soap container to this wood riser with E6000. And here's how all 3 of these pieces turned out. Another item I love to make from Dollar Tree is tiered trays, and they're fairly easy to do. I'm gonna do a different twist, one I haven't done before, but for this tiered tray, you're gonna need a dinner plate, a salad plate, 2 vases, and you're also going to need a smaller mirror. Now this mirror I picked up at Walmart. You can find similar small mirrors at Dollar Tree. So I wanted to add the base of this mirror into one of my vases. So I mixed up some Quikrete and water, and the Quikrete, I wanted it to be fairly runny so that I could put it into my vase without getting it on the outside. So I poured the Quikrete in till it was about, maybe like a half of an inch from the top. Next, I'm going to tap my vase on my table to get any air bubbles out. Then on my mirror, there's a piece that kind of hangs down because this is a foldable mirror. I'm gonna take that longer piece and set it directly into my Quikrete. I want this to set up so it's in the middle. So what I did was get some painter's tape and wrap that around this mirror to hold it in place while it dried overnight. Next, I formed my tier tray. So I started with the dinner plate on the bottom. Then I added a little bit of E6000 and placed the vase on next. I'll put E6000 on the top of that vase, put on the salad plate, and then I'll add a little bit of E6000 to the middle and place on my vase with the mirror. Once your vase has a chance to dry, you just take off the painter's tape. And this is great to set out in your bathroom for your jewelry or just odds and ends that you have. Let's put together a wall art. You're going to need 4 of these smaller frames from Dollar Tree. You're also going to need 2 canvases. I went with these abstract ones, but really you could use anything that you like. I'm gonna use the canvas to be the prints that are inside my frames. So I pulled out the backing on one of my frames, and I'm gonna use that as a template to cut out on my canvas. So I figured out what area I wanted to cut, placed the template down, and used a Sharpie to draw around it. I'm gonna do that so I can get 2 prints out of one canvas. Next, I went in to cut it out. Now, where I needed to cut was a little close to the edge, so you may have to pull off your canvas a little bit to get it cut out. Repeat these steps with your other canvas. Now, once you have 4 prints, all you need to do is put them inside of your frames. Now, one thing I wanted to change was I didn't really love the gold color on the outside of the frames, but you can update this really easily with a product called Rub and Buff. So I picked out the gold Rub and Buff that I wanted to use. It's just going to mute that gold down a little bit. Using a foam brush, I applied the Rub and Buff to the outside of my frame. Let that dry, and then to hang these on my wall, I wanted to put them on the shelf in my front room, so I added a command strip to the back, and then I'll just place them on my wall. Let me show you how to recreate concrete pottery barn planters for way less. Go to the thrift store and pick up 2 round glass containers, preferably 2 different sizes. You're also going to need some Quikrete. You want to mix the Quikrete with water on a plate, and you want it to be a little bit runny so that I can use a sponge to place it onto the outside of my bowl. So I'm going to take a sponge, dab it in the Quikrete, and start to dab it onto my planter. If it's too thick, like it was when I started doing it, just add a little bit more water to thin it out. You're gonna dab it all over your planter, making sure you cover the entire planter. Do this with both planters and let it dry overnight. When you come back the next day, you're gonna notice that there's some areas where you can kind of still see the glass through it. Just go around and do another coat. The cool thing about this is it's actually going to be a different color and consistency, because I feel like every time you mix Quikrete up, it's a little bit of a different shade. So I like that. I like having a little bit of that dimension. Again, let this dry again overnight. Then you can put in some of your favorite real or faux plants. I found these faux succulents at Hobby Lobby that I felt really mimicked that Pottery Barn piece, and I'll add these in, and here's how they look.